Thank you for joining us again and welcome back to our channel. If you are joining for the first time, I appreciate your time as always. It is important to know that the continent of Africa has made some tremendous changes, and a number of countries in the continent of Africa has come to the realization that their geopolitical partners around the world, especially the United States of America, would not deliver today, tomorrow, and in the future. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because the United States of America has taken a back seat. It comes at a time where the continent of African nations have decided that they want to charter a new part in their history and look for more strategic win-win partnership. It is important to know that the country of South Africa is facing incredible challenges with the United States of America, as at this moment the AGOA trade is on life support. Secondly, the country of Djibouti has stood up the United States of America, refusing that the United States will not use its territory to attack the Houthis. That has also brought friction. More importantly, the country of Egypt has decided that the United States of America, to an extent, based on the Gaza situation, this relationship is not so cozy at the moment, and Egypt at the moment is diversifying that relationship, looking at Russia and also France. More importantly of all, the country of Kenya, once considered a close body to the United States of America, has decided that it is about time to diversify this relationship, as we see Kenya making some move. Why is this period important? This period is important because the countries across the Sahel have decided that it is about time for them to identify themselves and make some incredible move to also making sure that they can assume their full potential. But again, the continent of Africa is paying attention as the global community, to an extent, is looking at events happening in the country of Togo. Togo has embarrassed itself, has disgraced itself, has put itself out there in the global community, and more shamefully, the country of Togo's perspective in the global community will be questioned to an extent. It is important to know that the regional body called ECOWAS has not made a single statement with regards to the events in Togo. This is unprecedented. It comes at a time when African countries, they are making incredible moves. Look at Ghana, talking about nationalizing the gold, and other countries around the region are looking for option. But at this time, Togo, that has put itself out there for the global media to consume.
Togo's leader, Faure Gnassingbé, now has a newly created title. He's transitioned from president to president of the Council of Ministers, a position that gives him chief executive powers and allows Parliament to re-elect him to unlimited 6-year terms. It bears noting his party, the Union for the Republic, holds 108 of the 115 seats in the National Assembly. It's the latest in a series of constitutional reforms the party has pushed through, consolidating power in the hands of Gnassingbé, whose family has been in power for almost 6 decades. Beyond the corridors of power, voices of dissent are struggling to be heard.
A new chapter in Togo, but with no end in sight. The country's leader, Faure Gnassingbé, was sworn in on the day his presidential term was supposed to end. So while he's no longer president, he still holds the country's highest office, President of the Council of Ministers. Gnassingbé has ruled this country since 2005, following his father's 38 years in power. Meanwhile, Congress voted the veteran politician Jean-Lucien to take on Gnassingbé's former role as president, which has now been downgraded and made largely ceremonial. Supporters say these changes are what Togo needs to strengthen democratic governance and to ensure citizens are better represented. But that move has angered the opposition, who see it as a power grab. With an appeal to the divine and to each other, they attempt to rally the public against what's being called the Fifth Republic.
Most Togolese today don't accept this. We can't present this to the outside world. We've become the laughingstock of the whole world. The aim is to mobilize the Togolese people against the imposition of the Fifth Republic. to mobilize, to never give up, and to answer our calls.
Calls to action that would need to be much louder if this rally's modest turnout is anything to go by.
And at this particular time, it's so embarrassing in the continent of Africa that the country of Togo, once considered an incredible destination region across the world, has come to the spotlight for negative reasons. These are challenging times across the region, and more importantly, no one is talking about it. You can't just keep blaming France for almost everything. It comes to a point that the people of Togo come to the realization that it will not be business as usual. We have to charter an entire new part in our development and growth.
I'd like to welcome now Professor David Dose, a leader of the opposition who joins us from the capital Lome. Professor Dose, ruling party leaders, your political opponents, say this transition to a parliamentary system has modernized government. What do you say?
The ruling party doesn't want to leave the power, and they created this ploy just to keep the power. So President Faure Gnassingbé can be on power for life, and we cannot accept it. Togo is the only country without alternation in the region, and it's something very dangerous for democracy.
What you're referring to basically is that under the new constitution, in this new position, Gnassingbé isn't facing term limits. So help our viewers understand what mechanisms, if any, are in place to ensure accountability and prevent any abuse of power.
It will be very, very difficult in this condition, because now we have a new system with a president of republic without any power, but with term limits. And Gnassingbé, he retains the full executive power, but without term limits. And the conditions are very difficult for civil society, for political opposition party, and it's very difficult for us to face the power. But we are doing our best, but it's very, very difficult. So it's a big way for him to continue to exerce the executive power and maybe to abuse. It will be more difficult when you know that justice also is instrumentalized.
I hope you'll forgive me for putting it this way, but I imagine there are people listening to us right now who would say, what is the point of having an opposition in Togo? You are the opposition. What are you going to do? What can you do?
You know, in 2017 and in 2018, we faced this ruling power, this regime, very strongly, and we were hoping to get free, to get freedom from this ruling party, but we didn't succeed. And now it's like everything must be redone. But you know, it's important to continue to speak to people, to tell them that they are the real power of the country. People is the real power of the country. This president is on power since 20 years. His father were there for 38 years. It's too long. We need to be free as the other countries. We need to experience alternation, democratic alternation as the other countries. Togo cannot be the same country where the same family stay in power, the same family use ploy just to have tenure elongation. And it's important for people to understand that. And I think that when they will understand the real situation, they will be able to mobilize themselves. And if we mobilize people, I know what we will do with this big, massive mobilization.
That's the reason why we see events in Togo are not going anywhere soon. Africa, you got to sit up because your geopolitical partners are observing very closely at the events going on at the moment. Not saying that tomorrow we start talking about sanctions, we start talking about cutting trade, we start talking about sidelining relationships, we start removing countries from regional body. These are important terms that we want to see leadership across that particular region of the continent of Africa. Togo's move has created tension unnecessarily in the international community and more importantly across the Sahel region, and ECOWAS is the body that should stand up at this time.
To talk to us about the situation in Togo, we're now joined on the News Hour by Aisha Dabo, who's co-founder and programs coordinator of Africanews, a civil society organization promoting democracy and rule of law. She's live from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Can you explain to our international audience first why there is so much anger in Togo over these constitutional reforms that would see Togo move away from a presidential system to a parliamentary system? Isn't that what most people wanted? To reduce the president's powers?
The problem actually is this is not an ordinary president. This is someone who came in power after his father has been in power for decades. And the trend has been every other term, there's a constitutional amendment to make sure that there is a way for the Gnassingbé family, and here Faure, who is the son of Eyadema, to stay in power. And by moving all the powers from the president, the position that will become honorary, to that of the president of a council of ministers who will be elected by the National Assembly members without any debate, it just shows that actually this is another attempt, for Gnassingbé to be in power way beyond 2030, because during the 2019 constitutional reform, there's a two-term mandate, and his mandate, actually, his term is supposed to end in 2030 if he seeks another one in 2025. And after that, also, he will have to step down. So this is seen as another attempt by the government, and specifically for Gnassingbé and his party, to stay longer in power.
African countries are facing incredible challenges, an emerging middle class, a bulging population. This is not going to go anywhere soon. The events in Togo are not one-off. They are a series of events that have happened across several regions. At this time, when Africa is dusting off the challenges that it's facing, looking at the geopolitical partners trying to put it or silence its voice, it comes at a time when that credibility, the doubt is being sowed out there, and African countries have decided that they are not going to be playing that particular game that has been for centuries. But countries like Togo have decided that they want to go 20 years, 30 years back. That's why the global media is sitting on this story, and it's not going anywhere soon.
Why, besides the fact that he's from the ruling dynasty, as you say, the Eyadema family, he's the son of Gnassingbé Eyadema, of course, why would it seem that people are not satisfied with his, with what he's achieved for the country?
The issue here is the respect for fundamental human rights. Togo could be doing well in economic and other areas, but the problem actually is there is no respect for fundamental rights. There have been many killings along the years that have happened from 2025 to the last major protests in 2017 and 2018, and there is no serious investigation to make sure that the perpetrators are held to account. And another problem is actually the freedom of expression, freedom of protest, freedom of assembly. All these are trampled on continuously by this regime, actually, which is a complete capture by a group, a clan of people who have been in power for years. You could be doing well in terms of economy, but when the fundamental rights of citizens are not upheld, there's a huge problem when it comes to democracy and the well-being, actually, of those people.
Yeah, we have seen a number of arrests of opposition activists in recent weeks. Parliamentary elections are due to take place very soon. How do you think it's going to play out?
I think I'm very hopeful because one thing about Togo, its people, the opposition, civil society, is they're very resilient. Despite all the challenges, they continue to be committed. And I believe with the recent amendment of the constitution that happened through a parliament that was no longer, that their mandate expired in December, so they legally didn't have the power to make those changes. I believe that this will mobilize citizens to go out and vote in favor of the opposition, so that the opposition can have either a majority or certain hold in the National Assembly. Keeping in mind that it's very difficult to have free and fair elections in this country. That's one of the reasons why the opposition boycotted the elections in 2018. But this time around, they're taking part, and I think it's a positive sign. And there's a slight hope for change through these elections.
Aisha Dabo, thank you so much for your insight. Very interesting to talk to you about the situation in Togo. Aisha Dabo is co-founder and program director of Africanews, joining us there from Senegal.
How is this possible that a country is ruled for decades by a same family and the same family continues to do the same? These are embarrassing times in Africa. It does not give you credibility in the eyes of your geopolitical partner. It is about time that we also take responsibility on issues that are happening across the region. The situation in Togo is devastating and dangerous because I'm saying this because this is something that will not go anywhere soon, and African countries are looking very closely on what happened. If you look at the events in Guinea and a whole lot of other countries across the region of the Sahel, it's important to know that to an extent, these type of moves were some of those things that triggered the events that we see at the moment across the Sahel. This particular situation in the country of Togo must be engaged immediately because it might lie low at the moment, but it might be brewing on the surface. Because if the country had been designed in such a way that it's only meant for those who eat fat, for those who feel happy, for those who feel that the system should remain the way it is, then it's not going to hold ground. That's the reason why the president of the country of Guinea always said that a system designed to benefit a few will not work. I want to thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in regards to the event in Togo, why this particular story is not going to be going anywhere soon, as Africa is experiencing tremendous pressure in terms of its development, growth, and making its voice heard globally. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.